What's the best example of having docu money that you've heard of? That time 50 Cent bought 200 front row tickets to a Ja Rule concert to keep them empty. My dad brought 50 Cent in his taxi to his concert in Milan and the dude spent a minute looking for the exact amount to give him. So Cher wouldn't give him more, SMH. So he's called 50 Cent because he's a cheap, petty piece of shit. Got it? A Ferrari owner took his 458 Italia to an auto detailer in my city. He told one of the workers not to drive it, but to come get him. When it was ready, he waited inside. The person detailing the car ignored his instructions and drove it from the shop. But instead of parking it, he accidentally crashed it right into a telephone pole. The Ferrari owner was furious. He ended up buying the property next door to the auto detailer and built his own car wash facility, which drove the auto detailer out of business. The Ferrari owner's car wash is still running strong and is actually one of the better ones around. I think it's called Tidal Wave Auto Spa. That's what happens when you poke the bear. The beginning of this story had me thinking Ferris Bueller's Day Off. Repost from over in Petty Revenge. Once upon a time there was a man who owned a piece of land next to a thriving restaurant. Now this man had owned the land for a long time, 22 years, and it was undeveloped. He had bought it cheaply, but it had great highway frontage, and he had always dreamed of building a little used cars lot or gun shop on the tract as his retirement pastime. Now, the man had had the tract zoned as a commercial lot when he bought it, but when news leaked about the upcoming development, the restaurant owners petitioned the zoning board to overturn the commercial zoning and reinstitute the original agricultural zoning. By the way, all land in the mythical state of Kentucky is zoned as agricultural by default. This was unfair, illegal, and generally rude, but the restaurateur's brother was the county zoning commissioner, so things naturally turned against our would-be entrepreneur. After fighting the good, clean, play by the rules sort of battle and losing, our would-be entrepreneur gave up. He decided to accept the county zoning. Not to see the tract go idly unused, the enterprising retiree decided to pursue another business venture. He raised hogs. Lots of them. 204, to be exact, on his little 12-acre tract. For those of you unfamiliar with the climate in time-lost Kentucky, the summers are downright southerly in their humidity and heat. As you can imagine, a rather malignant odor grew up around the thriving hog farm. Patrons of the restaurant ate elsewhere, anywhere else to be exact. In a matter of weeks, the zoning commissioner reversed his earlier ruling, returning the commercial status of the lot. It is another caveat of Kentucky zoning law that land can always be used for a purpose lesser on the scale of hierarchy than its current zoning. Everyone, especially the restaurateur, was surprised when the hog farm remained in operation. Nothing, not even substantial financial offers, could convince the new farmer to quit his now beloved occupation. Exactly 3 months and 4 days after the opening of the hog farm, the restaurant closed its doors for good. The farmer, in a fit of depression, ceased hog farming and decided to open a small sporting goods store instead. It remains there to this day, alongside his newly acquired restaurant. Wow, this isn't even petty. The restaurant owner deserved all of it. Awesome story though. I read where a farmer wasn't allowed to build a shelter for his horses because of zoning rules, so he instead built a giant table and chairs for them to stand under. No law against building that. I love when people evade stupid rules. As far as I know, there was some time in Polish history where it was hard to get a residence permit in Poland, even if you had Polish ancestry and inherited land from your parents. Some guy built a big camping caravan on his land and kept moving it around every few weeks, so he was just temporarily staying there, not settled permanently. The United States of America sent 3 dudes to the ducking moon in 1969 before the internet with less computing power than a modern phone, because they felt like it. Went to the moon to flex on the USSR. Making the USSR spend money was literally a big part of our strategy in the Cold War. We knew their economy wasn't viable in the long run, and there were military concerns about space. Phil Mickelson vs Jay Cohen, some country guy I had never heard of, either. Well, the 37-year-old songwriter was in attendance at Jordan Spieth's wedding the day after the match, and so was Mickelson. And after throwing back a few drinks, Owen's liquid courage pushed him to confront the 5-time major champion. So I walked over to him. I was like, "Hey Phil, you owe me $29.99. Owen said on Barstool Sports 4Play podcast, "I was like, backquote, for wasting 4 hours of my life with the golf I've ever seen. You guys hyped this whole thing up about the big match. You guys couldn't even make 3 birdies between the two of you. I want my $29.99 and apologize to me for some golf." He pulls out a wad of his thing and he grabs $100 like a $100 bill, Owen said. And he's like, "Yeah, I won 90,000 of these yesterday." He goes, "Take a 100 and go F yourself." That's pretty awesome on both their parts. I don't know if this story is true or not, but it goes like this. An area near where I grew up was rapidly expanding new homes for the ultra-rich. Vacation homes on the water for people like DiCaprio, Brad Pitt, Frank Gibbo, Russell Hanlon and Wayne Gretzky. Those types. Google any of those names if you don't know them. Anyway, because of the rapid expansion of these vacation houses, and since the clients were super rich, the main builder in charge was making crazy bank. He also had no driver's license. He got pulled over, found to have no license, which is a large fine, and the car/truck/van gets impounded. He pled guilty, paid the fine, and called someone who came by, picked him up, drove him to a dealership where he bought another truck. The city ended up with something like 18 of his trucks by the time construction was done. He told them to go ahead and sell them and keep the money. He didn't need it. Jesus Christ. This is the type of story I'm looking for, but it's weird he didn't just have a lawyer get him a license, lol, or hire a driver. One of my dad's clients wanted to put in small football goalposts at his house so his kids would have a place to play. He had a side yard that ran the length of the house that was about 25 feet wide and 80 or so feet deep, so it was a good size for a small field. He put a goal in the front yard and a goal in the back. Hoa got pissed about the goal in the front yard because it was an eyesore and made him remove it. He got around this inconvenience by buying both houses on either side of his own and making a massive football field through the 3 backyards. Edit, remove some potentially identifying info. There was a Hoa Nazi in Florida who decided that the houses looked bad when garage doors were open. She passed a regulation that garage doors couldn't be open for more than 5 minutes and aggressively patrolled the neighborhood to ticket offenders. One resident bought a timer. His garage door would stay open for 4 minutes and 59 seconds and it would close for 10 seconds before reopening. This is so gloriously petty, I love it. A former employer of mine booked a penthouse suite in hotel while on a business trip. The room had temperature control and the windows wouldn't open, but he was hot. He picked up a bar stool and smashed the picture window to let the breeze and then called the front desk, let them know about the accident and that maintenance could fix the window when they came to work on the thermostat. He threw a bar stool through a window because the thermostat broke. That's kind of immature. That's kind of what this thread is about. My cousin told me one about his dad, and we still laugh about it to this day. My uncle owns about 15 stores. He's not crazy rich, but pretty rich nonetheless. He was going to buy a red Volkswagen Passat, forget what year, but I think it was that year's model. He asks to take it for a test drive before he buys it. It was driving perfectly fine, but the car charger didn't work. So he told the guy at the counter about it and asked if they can fix it. The guy said something to the effect of, "Our insurance doesn't cover that, so we'd have to charge you." My uncle tosses him the keys and says, "Keep the ducking car." Keep in mind he has an Arabic accent, so to me it makes it funnier. And the guy goes, "Wait, what do you mean keep the car?" And my uncle and cousin just left. My cousin goes, "Why did you do that? It's not that big of a deal." My uncle says, "Just wait. They'll call back apologizing, fix the car charger, and give me an even better deal." Keep in mind his credit is fantastic, and he already gets very good deals and rates for buying vehicles. Sure enough, not long after, they called back and apologized and fixed everything and gave him a better deal. To this day every time we see him, we say keep the ducking car. Edit, a very important detail I forgot to mention. When they called back apologizing and offered him a better deal and if he would come back and buy the car, my uncle replied, "I'll think about it," and then hung up. My sister calls him the Arab Tony Stark. That's awesome, lol. In that type of situation I'd be stubborn enough to go to another dealer I think. I'm honestly surprised he didn't. He doesn't duck around with that type of shit. I used to think he overreacted, but he got to be in the position he's in because of his refusal to be trounced on for stupid shit like that. Now I realize how ridiculous it is that they would charge him for fixing something that he didn't break and had no business being broken in the first place.